You never really know how much venom a smile can hide until you see it drain from someone's face. Hers? It vanished the second I said the words. She's yours now. I don't need this used trash. His smug little smirk froze like a glitch in a bad video game. I watched the flicker in her eyes, the split-second panic, the crack in the act. Because up until that moment, she thought she had the upper hand. Thought she was the puppeteer, tugging at strings she assumed I hadn't noticed were there. But I noticed. Let me back up. My name's Ryan. 39. I built my life the hard way, grit, not inheritance. Grew my contracting company from one rusty pickup and a Craigslist ad to a full operation with 24 employees and a waitlist 3 months out. I never wore a suit, but I could put one on if the occasion demanded. I was never the loudest man in the room, but when I spoke, people listened. Especially her. At least, they used to. Her name's Kira. She was the kind of beautiful that made men stupid. Made me stupid, once. Chestnut hair, always perfect. Lips like temptation, eyes like they could read you and rewrite you all at once. She could make you feel like the only man alive, and apparently, she did that trick with more than one of us. I suspected for a while. You don't get blindsided by something like this unless you're actively trying to keep the blindfold on. And I'd worn mine proudly. She's just working late again. That's just her friend from the gym. Of course, she needs a second phone. It's for business. Business. Right. The day it all cracked wide open was a Wednesday. Plain old, salt of the earth middle of the week. I'd gotten home early, job site got rained out. And there they were, in my kitchen. Not caught in the act, no. I wasn't that lucky. No, they were laughing. Close. Too close. Wine glasses in hand like they'd been doing this for years. And maybe they had. His name was Adrian. The kind of guy who called himself a creative strategist, whatever that means. Skinny jeans. Tattoo sleeves. A beard you could lose a squirrel in. The type that never had calluses on his hands but thought he understood struggle because his podcast didn't hit the top 100. He looked me in the eye, cool as a cucumber marinated in arrogance. Like he'd already won. She did things to me, he said, that you couldn't even imagine. If I told you, you wouldn't like it. I didn't flinch. I didn't yell. Didn't give him the show he wanted. I looked him dead in the eyes, my voice low and flat. She's yours now. I don't need this used trash. That's when Kira's smile died. Right there. Like someone flipped the breaker and left her in the dark. And Adrian? His victory turned sour before he even realized it. He didn't understand what he'd just stepped into. See, most men would have exploded. Thrown a punch. Started breaking things. But I've learned something in my life. Emotion is a weapon, not a leash. And mine? It was loaded and locked. I walked out the front door without another word. Left them in that kitchen like they were two roaches caught in a sudden flick of the light. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. You see, the difference between rage and strategy is the body count. Rage is loud and messy. Strategy? It's silent, and it finishes clean. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't eat. Just thought. Replayed everything in my head. Every lie, every half-truth, every "I love you" that now felt like venom. And then I started planning. Because the thing about betrayal is it always reveals itself too late to undo, but just early enough to exploit. And what happened next? Well, no one could have predicted. You learn a lot about a person when you stop believing their words and start watching their patterns. The next morning, I went through our house like an archaeologist digging up a dead civilization. Except the civilization wasn't ancient, it was the life I thought we had. Kira didn't bother coming home that night. Gutsy move. Or maybe just stupid. Either way, it gave me time to do what needed doing. First thing I did, pulled the financial records. I had access to our joint accounts. Hell, I was the one paying for most of her independent lifestyle. Designer handbags, fancy weekend retreats, spa days labeled as business networking, it was all there, laid out in black and white statements that might as well have been written in blood. Adrian's name popped up twice. Fancy dinners. Hotel bookings. And in one particularly bold move, a custom bracelet. Engraved, to my only real love. Cute. I copied everything onto a flash drive. Didn't touch a thing otherwise. She'd notice if I did. And I wanted her to think, for now, that she was still the one playing chess while I was stuck moving checkers. Next move, legal prep. I wasn't about to go scorched earth without making sure the land was mine first. By noon I was sitting across from Matthew Klein, a divorce attorney so ruthless he made loan sharks look like charity workers. You sure you want to do this quietly? Matt asked, scanning the pile of evidence I'd handed him. Quiet for now. No fireworks, I said. But when it goes loud, I wanted to boom so hard they hear it 3 states over. He smiled, a sharp, wolfish grin. I can work with that. We drafted the papers that day. No warning for her. No heads up. No negotiations. When the time came, it had hit like a sniper's bullet, silent until it was far too late to duck. But this wasn't just about walking away. No. This was about taking everything she thought she had won, the house, the reputation, the comfortable life she was smug enough to believe was hers by divine right. She didn't marry me for love. Maybe once she thought she had. But somewhere along the line, she started seeing me as a stepping stone. And stepping stones, once crossed, get left behind without a second thought. Not this time. This time the stone was going to move. By the 3rd day, Kira finally slithered back into the house. She waltzed into the kitchen like nothing happened, wearing one of those sundresses that used to knock the air out of my lungs. Now it just made me wonder how many times she'd peeled it off for someone else. Hey, baby, she chirped, way too casual. Sorry about being out. Work's been crazy. Work. Right. At 2 a.m. In a cocktail dress. I didn't call her on it. Just smiled. No worries. I'd been busy too. The way her shoulders relaxed told me everything I needed to know. She bought it. She thought the storm had passed. She thought she could ride out a little mistake and reel me back in like a stupid fish flopping around in her net. But I wasn't the fish. I was the hook. Thinking we should take a trip soon, she said, her voice sweet and syrupy. Just the two of us. Reconnect. Reconnect. She had the audacity to say it like she hadn't spent the past year connecting with someone else's body, someone else's lies, someone else's dreams. Yeah, I said, leaning in like I was taking the bait. Let's plan something big. Something unforgettable. And in my mind, I already had. Because the next time we took a trip, it wasn't going to be to reconnect. It was going to be to detonate everything she thought she owned and leave her standing there, wide-eyed and broken, wondering when the bomb had even been planted. She wouldn't see it coming. They never do. Funny thing about betrayal, it's never as clean as the ones doing it think it is. By the time Kira floated the idea of a reconnecting getaway, I already had everything moving behind the scenes. Bank accounts separated. My name off the house title. Utilities rerouted. A ghost pulling his own strings in a life she didn't know she was about to lose. I played along, nodding thoughtfully as she suggested beach resorts and cozy cabins. We need somewhere. Private, she said, her fingertips tracing circles on the back of my hand. Private. Yeah, sweetheart. Real private. Perfect for when the walls come crashing down. While she gushed about a charming little rental upstate, I was texting Matthew Klein, my shark in a tailored suit. Go time. Push the papers. Everything was ready. Silent weapons for a quiet war. But the thing about revenge, real revenge, is patience. The art of waiting for the perfect fracture in the ground before you drive the wedge even deeper. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in self-control. Every smile, every kiss, every casual laugh at the dinner table. All of it was a performance so perfect I deserved a damn Oscar. Meanwhile, I watched and learned. She didn't slow down her affair. Not even a little. Adrian's car was parked 2 blocks away every 3rd night. Once, when she thought I was working late, he even had the nerve to walk right up to our door, wearing my slippers, the ones Kira always said made me look adorable. The nerve. The absolute disrespect. But I didn't lash out. Not yet. Instead, I fed the fantasy. I booked the trip. Paid in full. Let her pick the dates, the place, the whole damn fantasy. And when the day came, we packed our bags like nothing was wrong. I remember watching her as she zipped her suitcase shut, humming some stupid pop song off-key, as if she hadn't just burned the foundation of our lives down to ash. You excited? She asked, bouncing a little on her toes. More than you know, I said. And I meant it. The rental cabin was tucked away in the mountains, private, cozy, picturesque. It screamed romantic escape so loudly that you almost couldn't hear the ticking time bomb underneath. First night there, we played house. Roasting marshmallows, sipping wine by the fireplace, her head on my shoulder as she whispered about starting over. She really thought she was winning. Meanwhile, every text, every whispered phone call she'd made to Adrian since we left was being quietly forwarded to a private server I'd set up weeks ago. See, Kira wasn't smart enough to realize that syncing her phone to the rental's Wi-Fi gave me direct access to everything she was doing in real time. She wasn't planning a fresh start. She was planning her exit. I saw it all. The flirty texts. The plans to meet Adrian the minute she got enough space from me. The quiet discussions about how much she could get in the divorce if she played the victim right. The little shopping cart full of lawyers' contact info saved in her browser bookmarks. And all the while, she smiled at me like I was her stupid, clueless husband. The one who would roll over and hand her the keys to the kingdom. Oh, Kira. You really thought you could con a man who spent his whole life fighting for every inch he has. You thought wrong. The morning of day 3, I made her breakfast. Heart-shaped pancakes, strawberries, the whole 9 yards. She giggled and kissed me on the cheek, calling me the best husband in the world. And right there, with the sunlight pouring through the kitchen window, she asked, Ryan, do you think we'll make it this time? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw the practiced sadness in her eyes, the manipulative hopefulness in her voice. And I smiled. We'll be just fine, I said. Because in a few hours, she was going to experience a collapse so absolute that no charm, no tears, no lies could ever climb her out of it. I wasn't here to fix things. I was here to finish them. The trick with revenge, the real, cold, calculated kind, isn't just to win. It's to make them realize they lost, when it's already far too late. After that fake, syrupy breakfast, Kira curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone like a teenager in love. I watched her from the kitchen, the coffee mug warm in my hands, the taste of victory already blooming on my tongue. She thought she was winning. She had no idea the checkmate was already 5 moves behind her. Around noon, I suggested a drive to explore the little town, I said. Her face lit up, clueless as ever. She tossed on a sweater and hopped into the passenger seat, chatting about how free she felt, how hopeful she was for our new beginning. I let her talk. Let her bury herself with her own optimism. We pulled into a quiet little cafe right in the middle of nowhere. Quaint. Empty enough to be perfect. I'd arranged for it all, reserved a private room in the back, told the manager it was for a special meeting. I even had the decency to overdip. Kira ordered some overcomplicated latte while I pretended to browse the pastries. Then, like clockwork, Adrian walked in. Wearing a leather jacket, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. Trying so hard to look like a rebel when he had the soul of a coward. Kira's face drained of color the moment she saw him. He looked just as stunned, probably expecting some secret romantic rendezvous later. Not this. Not face-to-face, in front of me. I waved him over. Hey, man, I said brightly. Have a seat. He hesitated. For a second, I thought he'd run. But pride's a funny thing. It convinces idiots they still have a chance even when they're bleeding out. So he sat. Kira's hands trembled slightly. She tried to cover it by adjusting her napkin. Ryan, what's going on? I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table, calm as a man who already knows the verdict. Just thought it was time we were all honest with each other. Adrian opened his mouth, probably to lie, or maybe to flex, but I cut him off. Pulled out my phone. And started playing the audio. Their conversations. Their laughter. Their plans. Every little betrayal, piped through crystal clear. Kira's face went sheet white. Adrian's jaw sagged like a broken hinge. I know everything, I said quietly. Every meeting. Every kiss. Every lie you fed me while you were making other plans. Kira tried to speak, but I raised a hand sharp, firm, final. You don't get to talk right now. I turned to Adrian. You looked me in the eyes once, I said, voice like ice scraping metal, and told me she did things for you I couldn't even imagine. Remember that? His eyes darted around like he was looking for an escape hatch. I leaned closer, lowered my voice so only he and Kira could hear. You're right. I couldn't imagine stooping that low. Adrian's cheeks flushed dark red. Kira reached out like she wanted to plead, to soften the blow, to manipulate, but I pulled back before she could touch me. And then I dropped the real bomb. You know what's funny? I said, casually sliding a folded document across the table. While you two were playing house behind my back, I was busy too. Kira blinked. Picked up the paper. Divorce papers. Filed. Served. Irrevocable. Asset protection fully in place. House already transferred to my sole ownership. Joint accounts drained, legally, into new ones with only my name on them. Kira's eyes raced over the documents in disbelief. Her voice broke. But the house? It's mine, I said coolly. Bought it out before we left. You'll find your stuff boxed up when you get back. Security codes changed, by the way. She gaped like a fish on a dock, gasping for air she wasn't gonna get. And you? I turned to Adrian with a cold smile. Good luck, buddy. She's your problem now. I stood up slowly, savoring the devastation on their faces like a 5-star meal. You wanted each other so bad? I said, sliding my phone into my pocket. Congratulations. You're stuck with exactly what you deserve. I walked out without looking back. The last thing I heard before the door swung closed behind me was Kira's choked sob and Adrian's furious whisper. What the hell did you get me into? The funny thing about destruction, it's never instant. You don't just push the button and watch everything collapse at once. Nah. Destruction moves like a slow tide, swallowing everything piece by piece. I got back to the house, the real house, my house, around sunset. The air smelled clean, like rain had washed the whole world while I was gone. Seemed fitting. New air for a new life. Everything was already in motion. Her keys? Deactivated. Her car? Repossessed. It had been under my business lease the whole time. Her phone line? Cut. Her gym membership, her streaming services, her stupid monthly subscription to Wine of the Month? All canceled. And her belongings? Packed up neatly into boxes stacked in the garage. Labeled. Organized. Sanitized from my life like a surgeon cutting out rot. I walked through the empty living room, hearing my boots echo off the hardwood. This house finally felt like mine again. Not a shrine to a lie. Later that night, I got the first call. Kira's number popped up, but it wasn't her voice. It was tears, broken sobs, panicked breathing. Ryan, please, just talk to me. This isn't fair. We can fix this, please, baby. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call. This time from a number I didn't recognize. Adrian. His message was even more pathetic. Look, man, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Kiris, she's confused. She still loves you. She was just lonely, you know? We all make mistakes, bro. Just give her another chance. You don't want to do something you'll regret. I played it back twice just to laugh. Adrian, this smug idiot who told me he was doing things to my wife I couldn't even imagine, now begging me to take her back. Beautiful. Over the next few days, the fallout spread exactly how I planned. Turns out, when you yank the rug out from under a woman like Kira, the woman who built her whole identity on appearances, comfort, and status, there's not much underneath. First came the eviction notice at her temporary apartment. She thought she could just waltz into a luxury place without credit approval? Cute. Her last 3 credit cards? Declined. Her friends? Ghosted her faster than rats off a sinking ship once the word got out that she was flat broke and tangled in a public scandal. And Adrian? Oh, he tried to be her white knight for about 3 seconds, until he realized he couldn't even afford to cover her Starbucks habit. Their fairy tale ended in a screaming match outside a dive bar 2 towns over. Someone even caught it on video, Kira throwing a drink at him, Adrian yelling something about her being high maintenance, and a lying sack of, well, you get the idea. It went viral in our little corner of the internet. Everyone who needed to see it saw it. Poetic, really. She wanted to be desired, adored, worshipped. Now she was a punchline. An inside joke. Exactly what she turned me into for a little while. The best part? I never once raised my voice. Never once broke a plate. Never once gave her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I stayed ice cold. Calculated. Surgical. Because anger fades. But consequences? Consequences linger. One night, about 2 weeks after the cafe showdown, I got another message. From Kira. No calls this time. Just a text. I miss you. I made a mistake. Please. Let's talk. Please. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was tempted. Because for the first time in months, I realized I felt absolutely nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Not regret. Just the clean, empty clarity of a man who burned the infection out of his life and didn't need the crutch anymore. The thing about surviving betrayal is, people expect you to be broken afterward. They expect you to limp around, half a man, dragging your dignity like a busted tire. I didn't. In fact, I was more alive than I'd been in years. There's something about realizing you've survived the worst someone could do to you, and not just survived, but thrived, that rewires your DNA. I wasn't Ryan, the loyal husband anymore. I was Ryan, the man who rebuilt himself from rubble and dared the world to knock him down again. The town talked, of course. People always talk. Especially in small towns, especially when someone falls from a pedestal they built too high. They whispered about Kira. About how she'd been seen around, wearing last season's clothes, working a front desk at a hair salon where once she bragged about hosting charity galas. They whispered about me, too. How's Ryan doing? Poor guy. Must be crushed. But when they saw me, they didn't see crushed. They saw a man who walked into the local diner, nodded at the regulars, ordered his coffee black, and didn't have a hint of sadness in his step. They saw a man who didn't flinch when someone mentioned her name. They saw a man they envied. And Kira? Kira had to live with it. Every time she saw me, standing taller, laughing easier, surrounded by real friends, real respect, she had to taste the life she threw away. About a month after the final text she sent, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Sloppy. Pages and pages of apologies, regrets. We were soulmates. You're the only one who really knew me. I made a mistake, but we can start over. It ended with, "Please, Ryan. Just one chance to explain face to face. I owe you that much." She was right about one thing. She owed me. She owed me the truth. The honesty she had strangled the life out of every day for years. But a meeting? A second chance? Nah, I wasn't about closure. Closure's a scam sold to people who can't accept the truth when it punches them in the face. I didn't need her sob story. Didn't need to hear about how Adrian turned out to be a freeloading loser, what a shocker, or how she was depressed and confused. I already had closure. It came the second I realized that losing her wasn't a tragedy. It was the biggest damn blessing life had ever thrown my way. Still, I sent her a response. Short, brutal, final. You're right, you owe me. But I don't owe you a single second more of my life. I mailed it back to the return address she scrawled on her envelope. Apartment 5B. A cheap building on the bad side of town. Not the gated communities she used to lord over like royalty. Funny how karma doesn't bother with fancy packaging when it delivers your punishment. It just drops it right on your doorstep, dents and all. After that, it got quiet. I didn't hear from her again. No calls. No letters. No desperate pleas at my door in the rain. Maybe she finally realized. Or maybe life kept hammering her down to the size she really was without me there to prop her up. Either way, I didn't care. I wasn't looking in the rearview mirror anymore.